Before we begin tonight's tale, take a moment to settle in. Find a comfortable position in your bed. Let your pillows support your head. Let the blankets rest softly around you, and allow the day to slowly fade into the background. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, feel your shoulders loosen. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. This time is just for you. If your eyes aren't closed yet, let them soften. Let the gentle weight of sleep begin to gather behind them. Let every inhale bring calm, and every exhale release the last bits of tension from your body. Tonight's story is meant to carry you gently into rest. A quiet journey through Middle-earth, told not with battles or fear, but with stillness, warmth, and the peaceful rhythms of an orc, living a simple, soothing life. As you relax deeper into your bed, allow the slow, steady pace of the tale to guide your mind into that soft space between waking and dreaming. Now, when you're ready, let us begin. Chapter 1. Before Dawn in the Ashen Vale. A soothing orc. Life story for sleep. The night over Mordor was quiet. More quiet than most would ever expect from a land so often spoken of in sharp whispers. The winds, usually harsh and scraping, drifted with a softer patience. They carried with them no smoke tonight, only the cool scent of ash and the faintest trace of iron-rich earth warmed by the day. In the far edges of this land, far from the forges, far from the watchful towers, there existed a small valley, seldom noticed on any map. The orcs who lived there called it Gurath Dom, the Ashen Vale, not for its bleakness, though the soil was grey, but for the way the morning light collected gently in the shallow hollows, giving the whole valley a soft silver glow at dawn. And in this valley lived an orc named Rokvar. Rokvar was like most orcs in shape, broad, strong, shoulders marked by years of labour. But unlike many of his kin, his eyes held a steady quietness, a thoughtful amber calm. He woke every day, not to the clang of metal, but to the slow rising of the pale sky. On this morning, long before the sun's first touch, Rokvar stirred from his bedding of woven reeds. The air was cool enough to draw a small, fogged breath from him as he sat upright. His hut of bark-pressed panels creaked softly, settling with him. It was a familiar sound, a comfortable one, as soothing as the first sigh after waking. He sat still for a time, letting himself feel the weight of his own body, the slow pulse in his hands, the warmth collecting in his chest. The rhythm of breath, deep, steady, unhurried. Rokvar valued these moments, especially when the world was hushed. For in the Ashen Vale, the night did not press upon one's mind. It simply rested, as if relieved to have found a place where even darkness could exhale. Outside, faint murmurs of life were beginning. A drumming sound, soft, irregular, came from the small drake lizards that roamed near the valley pools. Their feet pattered gently on stone like distant rain. Farther off, a sleepy warg pup whined, nudging its mother for warmth. Rokvar pushed aside his woven door flap and stepped outside. The soil was cool beneath his feet. The ground shimmered faintly with night dew, which caught even the most distant starlight and spread it like glittering dust across the valley floor. He inhaled deeply, letting the cold air fill his chest, slow and full. This will be a quiet morning, he murmured to himself a habit he had formed not out of loneliness, but reflection. The other orcs of his valley lived simply, tending small farms of fungus and hardy roots. They were not warriors, not scouts, not makers of fear. They were keepers of the earth in their own rough way, taking what they needed and giving back as much as they could. It was a different life than the tales sung by elves or men. Not good or evil, just life. Rokvar made his way down a winding path toward the valley pools. The waters there were still and dark, warmed by gentle underground heat. Steam drifted from the surface in slow, spiraling threads. When touched by the faintest light, the mist glowed softly, curling and uncurling like a resting creature. He knelt and washed his hands in the water. It was warm, comfortingly so. Ripples shimmered outward, gentle concentric circles breathing across the surface. The world felt slow, kind, uncomplicated. Rokvar cupped some water and splashed it over his face. The warmth loosened the tension in his jaw, and for a moment he simply rested his hands on the pool's edge, head bowed, eyes closed. As he sat there, he thought of the dreams that had visited him in the night. Not the chaotic, restless dreams familiar to many orcs, dreams born from deeper shadows, but calm, drifting visions. He saw rolling plains, soft grass, the distant silhouettes of mountains painted in early glow. He could not say where these scenes came from, nor why they felt so gentle, yet he welcomed them. Some said dreams were echoes from forgotten times. Others insisted dreams were nothing more than wandering thoughts. For Rokvar, they were something quieter, markers, perhaps, of a path he did not yet understand. From behind him came a slow, dragging sound. Rokvar did not turn immediately. Soon he heard the familiar grunt of old Mogth, the valley's elder. Up before dawn again, Mogth muttered, half amused, half impressed. His voice crackled like dry wood. I swear, Rokvar, you rise earlier each season. Rokvar smiled slightly. The quiet is good for thinking. Mogth eased himself down onto a flat stone beside the pool. Thinking, or avoiding the morning tasks. Rokvar gave a low chuckle, barely more than a breath. Perhaps a bit of both. The elder dipped his large fingers into the water, letting the warmth settle into his old joints. The dreams again. Yes, Rokvar said softly. Clearer this time. A feeling like walking toward something. Mogth nodded, unsurprised. There are many kinds of orcs in Middle-earth, Rokvar. Some spend their lives in battle, others in forging, others in wandering, and some are simply meant to listen. To what? Rokvar asked, though he suspected Mogth had asked himself the same question for decades. To whatever the world whispers, Mogth said, voice barely above a hum. The stones, the roots, the wind, even dark lands carry old voices. The pool gurgled quietly, a pocket of warm air rising to the surface. Rokvar's eyelids grew heavier in the soft heat and steady rhythm of water. The quiet of the ashen veil wrapped around him like a blanket, gentle, weightless. The distant noises of waking creatures blended into a calming tapestry of sound. Nothing rushed, nothing demanded. He watched the first faint outline of light touch the horizon. Not bright, not harsh, but pale and silvery. Dawn approached slowly in Mordor, as though the sun itself stepped lightly near these lands. Rokvar leaned back against a stone ledge warmed by underground currents. The warmth radiated through his shoulders. His breathing deepened. His thoughts drifted. And not about war, not about orders, just about being, existing here in this valley that asked nothing of him but stillness. He felt the soft thrum of the earth beneath him, steady as a heartbeat. A warg pup barked once, a lazy, playful sound. The drake lizards fluttered their wings, shaking dew into the air. Wind moved across the valley, like a gentle hand smoothing a blanket. Rokvar closed his eyes. In the stories told about orcs, peace was never the ending. But here, in this quiet vale, brushed by dawn, peace was simply the beginning. And Rokvar, orc of the Ashen Vale, listened to the world as it murmured its soft, ancient lullaby, carrying him into a slow, drifting calm that felt as deep and warm as the pool beside him. This was his morning. This was his life. Chapter 1 was only the start. Chapter 2, The Whispering Plains of Lithrun. Var stayed by the valley pools long after Mogth had shuffled back toward the village. He watched the warm mist swirl in delicate spirals, drifting upward in lazy coils. It reminded him of drifting thoughts, those quiet ideas that float between waking and dreaming. The water whispered against the rocks, the faint trickle soothing, rhythmic. A breeze traced across the surface, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth, wild fungi, and the metallic hint of distant volcanic stone cooling from the night. These familiar smells wrapped around Rokvar like an old cloak, grounding him, but today felt subtly different, not dramatic, not ominous, just expectant, like the valley itself was holding a breath. Rokvar rose slowly, stretching his arms upward until the tension in his shoulders softened. His joints gave a low series of pops, comforting, grounding. He shook his hands lightly, working blood back through them, then began the walk up the slope toward the ridge overlooking the neighboring land. The ridge path was a simple one, worn, uneven, but known well by the orcs of the Vale. It curved upward between two narrow stone outcroppings before opening into a wide overlook. Few came up here this early, but for Rokvar it had become a habit, a quiet ritual. As he climbed, the world awakened in layers, the soft chittering of small beetle creatures burrowing out from under warm stones, the fluttering wings of the dusk bats returning to their roosts in the caves, a low, contented rumbling from somewhere in the distance, a great stone worm rolling beneath the earth to settle for its daytime rest. Each sound was gentle, unhurried, part of a living tapestry that moved according to rhythms older than any tower or fortress. Rokvar reached the ridge and paused. Below him stretched the plains of Lithrun, a seldom spoken of region, lying between the Vale and the wider lands of Mordor. Most outsiders imagined Mordor as a single bleak stretch of desolation, but here the plains moved with unusual beauty. They weren't lush like forests or green farms, but vast fields of tall grey-bladed grass, each stalk shimmering like brushed silver when touched by faint sunlight. And this morning, Lithrun swayed with slow, hypnotic waves, as though breathing with the wind. Rokvar loved this place, not because it was beautiful by any traditional measure, but because it was quiet, steady, and patient. a land comfortable with its own stillness. He took a seat on a low, flat rock at the ridge's edge, his legs folded beneath him naturally, and as he settled his weight, he let out a long, quiet breath. The wind moved past him lightly, brushing his skin like a cool cloth. Below, the plains shifted, subtle gradients of grey folding into one another like a rippling sea. Rokvar closed his eyes. He let the sounds guide him, not demanding attention, just gently offering it. The hush of wind, the faint rustle of grass, the soft clack of stone settling under morning warmth. In this peaceful moment, the dreams from the night returned to him in slow fragments. Rolling hills, the glow of far-off peaks, a path he could not yet see clearly, but felt somewhere beneath the surface of his thoughts. He opened his eyes when he sensed movement nearby. A small creature, hardly larger than a fist, emerged from between two stones. It was a grey tuft hopper, a gentle herbivore common in Lithrun. Its fur was soft and dust-coloured, blending perfectly with the plains. Two crescent-shaped ears perked upward as it sniffed the air. Rokvar stayed completely still. The tuft hopper hopped closer, pausing with each movement, its little nose twitching rapidly. These creatures were wary by nature, but they had long since learned the orcs of the Ashen Vale meant them no harm. The people here valued the plains' quiet inhabitants, seeing them as part of the land's slow, steady rhythm. The hopper reached Rokvar's boots, sniffed once, then settled beside him, fluffing its fur. It sat there, content, tiny chest rising and falling quickly. Rokvar smiled, not wide, just a soft upward curl of his lips. He reached down slowly, offering a broad hand for the creature's inspection. It sniffed, blinked, then nestled closer, leaning into the warmth radiating from his skin. Even the small seek stillness today, he murmured. The wind shifted, and with it came a faint sound, soft, low, almost like a hum carried from a great distance. Rokvar lifted his head. The sound wasn't alarming. It wasn't a cry of beasts or the clang of metal. It was musical, in a way, a resonance that drifted on the breeze, subtle as the breath of the plains themselves. He listened closely. The hum rose and fell in gentle waves, mimicking the movement of the tall grasses below. It seemed to come not from any creature, but from the land itself. Rokvar had heard it only a handful of times before, always early in the morning, always when the valley and plains felt especially calm. The elders called it the whispering, a natural phenomenon created by wind flowing through countless hollow stems of Lithrun's grass. Yet there was something undeniably soothing about it, something purposeful. The tuft hopper lifted its ears at the sound, then relaxed with a tiny sigh. Rokvar leaned back on his hands, letting the whispering pass through him. It made his chest feel lighter, his breathing slower. There was no urgency here, no command, only presence, only being. As the hum faded, replaced once more by the simple hush of wind, Rokvar's attention was drawn to a shadow moving slowly across the plains. A figure, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with a surprisingly even gait for so early in the morning. As it approached the ridge path, Rokvar recognized the silhouette. It was Hrukmal, one of the Vale's gatherers. His heavy frame and thick plating scars suggested a harder life before he came to Gurathdom. But his eyes, like many of the valley folk, softened over the seasons. He approached with a respectful nod. Rokvar, Rukmal rumbled, voice deep but gentle. Mogth said you were up here. I needed the quiet, Rokvar replied. Rukmal lowered himself onto a rock nearby, exhaling heavily as he settled in. Quiet helps the mind find its shape. Rokvar glanced at him. You sound like Mogth. Rukmal allowed himself a rare chuckle. If the old one keeps making sense, I suppose that can't be helped. They sat without speaking for a while, companionship wrapped in comfortable silence. The plains swayed before them, endless and serene. After several minutes, Rukmal sighed. The council meets at mid-sun, he said softly. The soil in the eastern terraces is shifting. Plants not taking root well. Mogth wants your thoughts. Rokvar nodded. I'll be there. But that's not the only reason I came up, Rukmal added quietly. Rokvar turned slightly. Rukmal's eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but in thought, like someone choosing words carefully. There are stories, Rokvar, he began, of orcs who feel called beyond the tasks of the Vale, not to war or command, but to listening, to walking where others don't. Rokvar's breath stilled. What kind of stories? He asked. Rukmal shrugged. Old ones, whispers from times before our line broke into countless forms. Mogth says some orcs are touched by old echoes in the land. You've always heard things differently. Rokvar lowered his gaze, eyes on the drifting grasses. My dreams, he murmured. Rukmal nodded. Aye, Mogth thinks that's part of it. The wind carried the soft, chime-like hum again, just a faint thread of sound. Rokvar felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not excitement. Something like recognition, as though whatever waited beyond the plains had always been there, simply unseen until now. Rukmal rose slowly, joints cracking. Take your time. The council won't start for hours yet. Rokvar nodded wordlessly. Rukmal began his descent, but before he vanished down the path, he paused. You're not like the others, Rokvar. That is no burden. In the Vale, difference is a path. He left without another word. Rokvar stayed on the ridge long after he was alone again, the tuft hopper still pressed gently against his leg. He closed his eyes and let the wind wrap around him once more. The whispering rose and fell softly, almost melodic. His dreams returned vividly. A distant mountain range, beneath clouds lit from behind. A winding path along dark stone cliffs. A pool of water reflecting stars not yet seen. There was no fear in these images, only calm, only guidance. He opened his eyes and stood. The tuft hopper blinked up at him, then hopped away, disappearing between the rocks. Rokvar inhaled slowly, letting the air fill him. Something was calling him, not urgently, not loudly, but steadily, like a voice speaking from beyond a veil of mist. He began walking down the path toward the village, each step quiet, unhurried. As he moved, the world felt warm and gentle around him. The day would be long, the council would gather. The Vale would continue its slow rhythm. But deep within Rokvar's chest, something new and steady began to take shape. A sense of direction forming, like a path clearing in fog. Whatever lay ahead, the land itself seemed to welcome his steps, and in the soft morning air, touched by the whispering of Lithrun, Rokvar felt the beginning of a journey that would unfold not with battle or fear, but with quiet understanding. A journey guided by the gentle murmurs of a land long misunderstood. A journey only beginning with the rising light. End of chapter 2.